podcast. I'm your host, Travis Merrier, CEO of FlexPoint. Today we've got Matt Reeder from MadFish Solutions. Matt, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely, this is great.
Cool. So we've obviously worked together on a lot of different mutual customers. We've known each other for a while. I've had to have dinner in Vegas, all that kind of stuff. But for everyone listening, all of our viewers, do you mind just giving us a quick update and just idea of kind of what MadFish does and the business in general?
Absolutely. So, Travis, my journey started many, many years ago, right? I got into technology and software when I was about 14 years old. I was writing code for businesses. And so I did the math the other day, and it turns out that's about 38 years now, and have really been in the e-commerce world since the beginning. So about 25 years. Owned several companies along the way, owned a couple of e-commerce companies along the way, and then in 2012, I started MadFish Solutions. And MadFish Solutions was an e-commerce agency that offered business consulting services to e-commerce companies. It wasn't simply a web design firm, it wasn't simply just an implementation kind of thing or a digital marketing firm, but it was more of a business consulting firm that we helped these people grow. It really came out of the idea that when I started MadFish, it was about one thing. I had one purpose in mind, and I wanted to change people's lives through technology. I wanted to make a difference to these business owners. And that's something we love doing, and that's something that we've been very fortunate to be able to see story after story after story where we have really transformed these folks' lives and their companies with what we do.
That's awesome. I mean, really, a lot of times you hear about just I build websites, I do digital marketing, whatever. It sounds like you guys take a very concerted approach to making sure that you are actually hearing out the customer, what they're looking to do with their business, and kind of build like a custom plan. Is that a fair way of thinking about it? Like, how do you guys differentiate from like a marketing agency? Is it in the approach, or is it other tactics that we should be thinking about?
Absolutely. I think it's a little mix of both of that, but I think the initial thing is you're absolutely right. We listen. When we do our initial discovery session, it's so little about MadFish and so much more about the company. And we go over everything from history to where they, how they got started, what they do, how big they are. We ask them questions about every aspect of their business to find the pain points. And that's really, I think, the big differentiator, right? We look for the pain points and solve the pain. It's not just about driving more traffic. It's not just about building a new website design. It's really about how can I help make your life better in running your e-commerce business, right? And by doing that, the thing that we hear over and over again when we go up against other competitors of ours, and we hear over and over again when they choose us, it's like they said, when we work with MadFish, when we work with you, we feel like you're really there as a partner for us. That you really listen to us and you really care about our business. And that's the thing that I tell every one of my employees. I say, when you work on a project, I want you to work on it as though that was your company, that was your business and what you were doing and everything that we do. So that attention to caring and that attention to detail and the way that we work with these customers, I think is the big differentiator for us. The other big thing that they like from my standpoint and what I bring to this table is I'm not just a computer guy, right? I've run these e-commerce companies. I've had them, I've built them, I've sold them, and I know what the pain is in their shipping department. I know what the pain is in receiving and managing inventory. I can relate to that, and by being able to relate to them and really understand where they're coming from, it allows us to be a trusted advisor, right? We transform that role from these are my web design guys or these are our digital marketing guys to these guys are our trusted advisors. I mean, they're the ones that we go to when we have questions or problems or new ideas. They come to us because they trust us.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you do focus, is it 100% on e-commerce or is it 90%? Yeah, 100%. So that's,
yeah. In the early days of MadFish, I was doing all kinds of things. We were doing custom design apps. We were doing, regular static websites and doing all sorts of different things. And what I realized was as we were trying to sell all these different things, it wasn't what we had passion for, right? And literally from the beginning, back in 97, 98 kind of time frame, um, it was my passion was in the e-commerce realm. And so when we transitioned the company and said we're going to be laser focused on e-commerce and what we can do for those people, the company really transformed. And that's when we really started to grow and become what we are today.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense, right? As far as differentiating, not just in your approach and like the passion you have, but the fact you can focus down in e-commerce specifically obviously makes you guys experts there. And I didn't know that you had some past e-commerce businesses. Do you
Yeah.
mind filling us in? What kind of companies were they?
Yeah. One was a cooking store that we had a retail location. We sold small kitchen appliances and different things like that, like KitchenAid mixers and
Right.
higher end stuff. But that was one of them. And then I ran a business with my dad that was a swords and knives company. So we sold swords and knives and you know anything with a blade,
Right.
basically, all around the country, and it was kind of cool. We built the business to a pretty good size, and we even had things like in John Wick 2, the movie. We
Right.
had when they all the knives that they were using, they bought from us, and that was pretty cool.
That is cool. Yeah, so you've felt the pain of the shipping side of things and out of stocks and
Yep,
all that. So you've got that kind of background. Focusing on e-commerce, having that business background, knowing their pain, that's obviously a way to differentiate. I've
yep,
seen you even kind of focus, which is tough to do, focus down on industry specific too. At least, I mean, at least it seems like you've got a flywheel going into certain industries. Have you found that focusing in industries is a core strategy of MadFish, or is it just kind of a byproduct of the flywheel that you got going?
right. You know what? To be very honest, it was completely accidental. It
Yeah.
was a situation where one of the industries that we really focus on is in the firearms and the guns and ammo and all kinds of accessories. And about 2.5 years ago, we got our first customer in that space, and then we got another one, and then we got another one, and we went to SHOT Show and did pretty well, got some leads out of that, and then they just start coming, and we just started focusing on that. My experience in my career, I've helped everybody sell everything you can imagine, from cookies and cheese to baby toys to we helped a woman, this was years ago, but I helped a woman build a multiple six-figure income selling fingernail polish and high-end dog beds, but the fingernail polish was for your dog, you know? So it's really anything and everything that we've worked with. And I over the years I've worked with hundreds of companies, in just every industry that you can imagine. I think again that's one of the differentiators that I bring to the table with that is there aren't many industries that I can't have something to bring to the table when I'm working with those customers, right? To be able to say, look, yeah, I understand the clothing business. Yeah, I understand the medical business. I understand the guns business. But this gun thing, this guns and ammo thing was completely accidental. And
Right.
like you said, I love the idea of you said like a flywheel. That's really it just has grown and built some momentum and now it seems like that's something we're really focusing on.
Yeah, we're kind of riding it with you, right? Kind of hand in hand with this because we've seen the same thing. When you can focus down, when you can really dial in on a customer and their pain points, you can solve it really well. People start
Yeah,
hearing about it. You get the word of mouth, and now it's like, okay, we are a primarily firearm offering,
yeah,
or at least like we focus better there than anywhere else. And
yeah,
whenever we have a firearm customer that needs a website, right, we always are calling you up and
yeah,
putting together a good product, a good package, right? And that's something
yeah,
that's unique in the market, and I think that's really where true value is unlocked. So, a big believer in the flywheel and focus when you can do it, but it's so hard. I ran a marketing agency previously to this, and it was like that was the day I was like, when you can turn away business because they don't fit your ICP, that's when you make it, right? It seems like you've been able to get there, so that's awesome. With the kind of focus in e-commerce and maybe in some industries a little bit, do you have like a go-to? I'm sure there's a lot of marketing agencies and small businesses out there that are thinking about doing more of an agency model at some point, maybe. Do you have a go-to like tech stack or go-to playbook when it comes to bringing on new customers?
absolutely. And it's interesting that you asked that question, because what we've done is gone out as a process of not only the companies that I've helped run, but also as a process as MadFish. We've built what we call the MadFish tech stack, right?
Hmm.
And our primary starts on an e-commerce platform. We use BigCommerce for most of what we do. We do a little bit of Shopify, but most of what we do is BigCommerce. And then we start to stack on the different third-party apps depending on what somebody's needs are, right? We've got solutions for online chat. We've got solutions for shipping and fulfillment. We've got things for, data integration and drop shipping, like we use FlexPoint so much for. And by doing that, with ShipStation and Shipper HQ and, Talk To as the company and those things, we've built enough history with them and enough progress with them, just like you have seen with what we've done by including you guys in projects, right? And again, that transition of sales guy and website company to trusted advisor, when we come in and say, this is the right solution for you, this is what it's going to do for you, this is how it's going to solve this pain point, and this is the benefit of it, the turnaround and the close ratio of those third-party systems when working with us is extremely high, because that trust thing. When we say FlexPoint's the right answer, you saw that just in one of our recent customers, right? I mean, I think I told Anthony that was probably the fastest FlexPoint close that we've ever had. I think the entire time spent on it was probably an hour and a half,
It's a good sales cycle.
right?
Awesome. Well, and you mentioned BigCommerce or Shopify, which I know is always kind of like a, I don't know, heated discussion, but people are always interested to understand why pick one over the other. Given your background and your knowledge in the space, when do you lend towards one versus the other? And why do
Right.
you go over BigCommerce more so?
Right. The thing that I like about BigCommerce so much is versus the Shopify. Shopify does everything it can to put its, I hate to say it like this, but to kind of put its hooks in you with business checking and payment processing and all these things that make it very difficult to leave, right? They make it very challenging from that standpoint. BigCommerce doesn't do that, right? That's one thing I really like. When you stack up the core features, like if you look at a Shopify Plus and a BigCommerce Enterprise, and you look at the core features that are in there, in order to match the feature set in Shopify with the number of add-on apps you'd have to put in there, you're looking at spending 3 times what you'd spend on a BigCommerce implementation, right? So there's a lot of cost benefit that we look at from that standpoint. There are other aspects of it, obviously, with our firearms experience, where BigCommerce is very 2A friendly. They have more of a mindset of, if it's legal to sell in the United States, it's okay to sell on BigCommerce. And where Shopify is taking the approach where they're even getting down to gun accessories or gun related type products, they're kicking off. And when you've got a business that's running and they come to you and say, okay, you have 15 days before we turn the lights out, that's a rough boat to be in. So it's really about cost benefit. It's about customer support. It's about flexibility and ability that we have to do add-ons and customizations and really fantastic custom designs. We just find that's a much better platform to go on. One other stat that I'll tell you about that people talk about, well, Shopify is much bigger than BigCommerce is. Shopify does have more subscribers. It truly does. But a vast majority of those are Sally selling t-shirts out of her basement. When you look at the number of companies that are doing $1 million or more in online revenue a year, BigCommerce is the absolute leader worldwide from that, because they have been built for enterprise growth from the ground up.
Bunch of good examples there and kind of why you choose it. So appreciate that.
Yeah.
So we obviously kind of cross paths with, being in the firearms. Automotive, I think, was a big one that you've rolled out a couple automotive websites, and there's a lot of dropship need in both of those industries. So we obviously started working together. But just if you don't mind, just giving a quick overview of like how you use FlexPoint for your customers, where it
Absolutely.
plugs in, kind of how it's strategic to MadFish.
Well, one of the key things that we look at when we talk to these business owners is we look at their time, right? Because that's one of the biggest pain points when you own a business or you run a company. I mean, I'm sure you experience this yourself, how much time is put in. And when we're able to shorten the amount of time to do the same task or more tasks, we have just impacted this person's life. You know, when I can say to a business owner, I'm giving you 20 hours a week back into your life, that's life changing, right? So we have a customer that we did with you guys, and we're getting ready to launch with that one. And just in what he was listing to Gunbroker, with a manual process, manually listing all these auctions, right? Now he's going to be able to go through this inventory, check, 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 list. And it's going to push this stuff up. I mean, we're talking about converting probably 10 to 20 hours a week down to 30 minutes to publish more auctions to that environment. So that's number one. The second thing that we saw was the catalog consolidation, right? The ability to take multiple drop shippers, consolidate that catalog, get the best data from each one of the drop shippers, create an ideal product matrix, right? And then be able to push that to the sales channels. So if vendor one has better descriptions than vendor two, but vendor two has better images, and maybe one has a UPC code, the other one doesn't, the ability to mix and match that data and pull that in and then push that to your channels, that's just paramount to us, right? One of the other big things that we saw was your category mapping capabilities. That ability to say, because when you're dealing with all these drop shippers, you don't have the capability of bringing that same taxonomy straight down to your e-commerce store because they all have a different one, right? But the ability to map those and say, okay, from vendor one, these categories really go here, and these categories really go here, and so forth, and doing that for each one of those vendors. And then when you push that product data to your big commerce, everything is in the right place, everything is findable by the user, everything is organized the way you wanted it as the shop owner, right? So those three features were really some of the key things that we have seen and used, and our customers have benefited from so much.
That's awesome. Appreciate you outlining those. I mean, I've never asked you that question. I always hear different answers when we, interview people, and the category mapping is an interesting one. It's always been a pain point, and we've tried multiple different ways to solve it over the years. And I think we've iterated to a good spot now. I'm just curious in general. Obviously, we have competitors. You're aware of our competitors. I think some of those points you brought up are definitely how we differentiate. But just given your background and the knowledge I know you have in this space, how would you view FlexPoint as the brand compared to other competitors? I mean, just curious how we're viewed in your eyes, like in comparison to those other kind of competitors, how we're different.
I think a lot of this, I'm going to use an automotive analogy for this, right? There's a couple of competitors out there that are the Chevrolet in the space, right? They do a decent job. They're not horrible by any means, right? They are able to connect, they're able to bring data in, they're able to manage orders, they're able to do that. And they do a decent job at that, right? When we look at FlexPoint, when we were vetting these solutions out, because we went to each of the different vendors of this and we were vetting these out, the thing that we liked about FlexPoint and its origins and inventory source and how that migrated and the history that you had, right, and the years that you had, and the software that was built. Because again, you got to look at, from where I come from, being in the software tech world my whole life, I've become very critical of software applications, like the UI, the way that a non-technical person will use a system. A lot of software out there is built by developers the way developers think. Developers don't think like the rest of the world. They just don't, right? And that's why they're good developers, right? So when I looked at your software, it was more like a Mercedes, right? Had was incredibly well built. It was incredibly intuitive. It was very easy to get in and do what it needed to do. It was incredibly customizable with the rules and the automation around the OMS section and everything that you could do there. It was just taking what the rest of the industry was doing okay and doing decently, but taking it to a whole nother level, right? And that was really the big difference. That's when we looked at that and said, this is what we want to recommend. The reason is just the set of features, the capability of customization like you can, the history that you have, the longevity that you have in the space of integrating data in from these suppliers. It was just a good mix of what we really wanted to, if we're providing them the best e-commerce and we're providing them the best solution for shipment and fulfillment, and we're providing them the best solution for shipping rate calculation or that kind of thing, we wanted what was the best in the data integration and OMS and that kind of piece.
Yeah, no, I love that. As a trusted advisor, give them the best in breed. You've already done the vetting for them. Here's the package. Here's the MadFish tech stack, as you said. That's awesome. And I love that you did the car analogy. I've had multiple slides over the years comparing inventory source to the Honda Accord, like to get us from point A to point B. Flex was always our Lamborghini to bring in the high rollers and be super customized on high performance. US Direct was a fun Jeep. So I really love that analogy. I've used with something similar. Well, cool. So, we've got 2024 where Q1's behind us. We still got a lot of year left. It seems like, the COVID boom happened. It kind of tapered off, but now we're back to this nice, steady kind of feels like a nice growing incline. E-commerce is picking back up. I'm curious, what are you excited for? What are you seeing in the industry with your background, your knowledge? Curious what you can kind of share.
Yeah, for sure. And I say this cautiously because it's something we hear so much about, right? And now, and everything is AI, right? And it's not going to be long before my microwave has AI, and it's
Right.
I put in something and it's going to automatically determine what it is and automatically determine, it's everything is about what this generative AI capabilities are. I had a great conversation with somebody once, and I was in this kind of roundtable with some folks at Big Commerce, and there were some people really panicked about what AI was going to do, and they were worried that they were going to lose their agencies because of what AI could do for them. And what we said was AI in itself is not going to close your business down, but another business that uses AI, that will shut your business down, right? So when we look at the tools that are out there and we look at what we're doing, we're pretty excited about something. I can't really go into a lot of details yet, but we've got a new offering that's coming up in the next couple of months. And a lot of it is built around some of these AI technologies that are out there. And, the idea is, putting together all of the digital marketing services into one offering that is automated and integrated and connected and using those tools to kind of do this. We're pretty excited about what we're doing there. So when I look forward and I look at this, it's how can we utilize this technology to improve, shorten time frame of delivery, and you know, do it in a much more intelligent way than we were able to in the past, right? I tell all of my guys, like, first thing that they do when I hire someone new in, I'm like, get a Chat GPT membership, get it set up, get logged into it. And I said, I want you to talk to this system the way you would walk in a room and you'd sit down across from a person that knows everything. And I want you to ask it questions and talk to it just like you would that. And I want you to come back to me with what you found out, right?
Yeah.
And when they got out of the mindset of it being like Google-like questions and got more in the mindset of, okay, here's where I am, this is what I'm doing, this is the output that I'm looking for, what do you think about this, this, and this? Can you expand on this? Man, oh man, the capabilities that this stuff has is just mind blowing. I mean, I put together an entire marketing strategy for a company with customer personas, with email marketing strategy, social strategy, paid ad strategy, everything that they needed to do, an entire strategy document that was incredibly in depth and incredibly powerful in a fraction of the time that would have taken me.
Yeah.
It would have taken me days to do something like that in the past. And sure, we're still vetting out the data. So we're still double checking everything it's doing and does it align with what we believe and, that kind of thing. But being able to provide an elevated level of service to our customers, right? And being able to be that trusted advisor and have even more knowledge to share with them with these tools, it's some remarkable stuff.
It is exciting stuff, and I like how you started there, cautiously, right? Because all you hear about now is AI, but I think you touched on some key points where it's like you take your own domain expertise and able
Yep.
to and just really accelerate the ability of delivering that to a
Yep.
customer, and not all the manual kind of grammar checks and how to structure it. It really just kind of accelerates getting that proposal, that plan together, whatever it might be, and it really just more gets done, right? That's not replacing your domain expertise.
Yep.
You're
Yep.
feeding it, you're refining it, you're training it to some extent, right? And they'll continue to
Yep.
get trained into more specialized agents, but it is about leveraging it. You're right, and I think that's super interesting. I just saw, I think it was recently, I think Grok is the new one. I think Elon's behind that one or whatever. But one of the top guys there, he was talking about how he feels that AI is going to, create more jobs than we can handle because of, the amount of, expertise that might come out of it, where it's this shift where we think, okay, it's going to take away all these jobs, but we're moving to a new age because we can't, it takes away all of our intuition of like how things should go today. Like moving into a new age is by definition kind of doing that, like breaking down your intuitive thought of how things work. And it can create a lot more jobs and opportunity just as we change the way that we approach things, because more is getting done faster, more
Yeah.
efficiently, like you just
Yeah.
outlined.
There's a funny story. I knew a doctor that was incredibly successful ER doc, right? He was really great at his job. He was well looked at by his peers. He, was just phenomenal at what he did. And he was asked, he went, somebody asked him and said, how did you get so smart? How do you know all this stuff? And he said, look, I'm a better doctor because I learned how to Google. I learned how to ask the questions. I learned how to use the tools. And by learning, just like you said, by learning how to talk to ChatGPT, by learning how to use these AI and these generative AI systems, by doing that, it is going to create jobs. It's going to create an incredible need for people who really understand how to ask the right questions. I mean, that was a physician that was treating patients like crazy and was incredibly successful. And he said, "Look, the reason I'm as good as I am because I knew how to Google really well."
Yeah, so you could parallel that to what we're seeing now for sure.
And yeah,
Well, cool, Matt. Some really interesting stuff here. I appreciate the time. Anything else that we didn't touch on? Any closing kind of thoughts? Or did we
yeah,
cover it all?
I think we covered it all. I think we're really looking forward to the rest of this year, and we're looking forward to our presence again at SHOT Show this January or the coming January, and what we're going to do there, and some of these new sites that we're launching and getting ready to go in that space and in that industry, and more success stories.
Yeah.
I think it's I'll share a story about the life changing thing. We had a guy that he started this business out of his house, right? And he sold ammunition. That's all he sold. It was a niche thing. And I've always said there's riches and niches, right? You find the right niche, there's incredible power there. Sold ammo. He was doing well in spite of himself, right? He was doing $60 to $80,000 a month. It was out of his house. He's nearly $1 million a year in sales online. His site was horrible. Wasn't mobile friendly. It wasn't easy to use. It looked like crap. It was just horrible. We come in and we completely redesign the site, give him a whole new workflow on the whole way to process all these things, move him over to BigCommerce, do all the things right. We flip the switch on overnight, like literally the next day. His conversion rate went from 2.75, I think, to almost 5.5. The guy doubled his business overnight, you know? And the call that I had after that was he was just like, I don't know what to say, but thank you, you know? And when that kind of thing happens, that is why I did this. That is why I did MadFish Solutions, because when you can change someone's life like that and you can change the trajectory that they're on, and there's nothing better than that.
That's great. Great parting thought. I appreciate it. Yeah, that's why we're all in business, right? Is that exact kind of moment. So appreciate it, Matt. As always, great chatting with you. MadFishSolutions.com, right? Is the domain. Awesome. Thanks again for having you on.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.